The Great Hall of the Galactic Concord stretched for miles in every direction. Floating platforms held representatives from over 800 species, each one watching the small human delegation standing at the center of the chamber. Daniel Reyes kept his hands steady at his sides. He had practiced this moment 1,000 times in his mind, but nothing could prepare him for the weight of so many alien eyes. The year was 2347. Earth had been part of this grand alliance for 112 years. Humanity had traveled to distant stars, traded with strange beings, and learned secrets of the universe that their ancestors could never have imagined. But today, all of that was about to end. The Speaker of the Assembly, a tall creature with silver skin and 4 arms, raised its hand for silence. The chamber fell quiet. Even the air seemed to stop moving. The charges against the species known as humanity are as follows, the speaker announced, its voice echoing through translation devices across the hall. Aggressive expansion into territories beyond their assigned sectors. Cultural contamination of developing species. Dangerous curiosity that threatens the stability of established order. Looking mating. Instating 1. Daniel wanted to argue. He wanted to tell them that humans explored because it was in their nature. He wanted to explain that sharing ideas was not contamination, but connection. But he knew the rules. He had to wait. The Assembly will now vote on the motion to expel Earth and all human colonies from the Galactic Concord, the speaker continued. All in favor, signal now. Lights began to appear across the chamber. Red lights, hundreds of them, spreading like a disease through the floating platforms. Daniel counted them in his head. Even though he already knew the result, the vote had been decided long before this moment. This was just theater. When the final count appeared on the display above, Daniel felt his heart sink. 647 species had voted to cast humanity out. Only 89 had stood with them. 64 had chosen not to vote at all. The speaker looked down at Daniel with what might have been pity. The motion passes. Earth has 90 standard cycles to withdraw from all Concord space. You will surrender your hyperlane access codes and dismantle your off-world colonies. Failure to comply will result in military enforcement. A murmur ran through the chamber. Some of the alien representatives seemed pleased. Others looked away, unwilling to meet Daniel's eyes. Daniel stepped forward. He had the right to speak now, and he intended to use it. Members of the Assembly, he began, keeping his voice calm and clear. Humanity accepts this verdict. We will leave your space. We will follow your rules. But I want you to remember something. He paused, looking around the vast chamber. 112 years ago, we came to you as newcomers. We were young and eager and full of wonder. We asked questions because we wanted to learn. We explored because we wanted to understand. We shared our stories because we believed that connection makes us all stronger. Several alien representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. You call this aggression? Daniel continued. You call this contamination. But we call it hope. And hope is something you cannot vote away. Humanity will leave the Concord, but we will not be broken. We will not disappear. And one day, you may find that the galaxy is a lonelier place without us. He gave a small bow and turned to leave. His delegation followed in silence. Behind them, the chamber erupted in noise. But Daniel did not look back. 3 days later, the news reached Earth. Commander Laura Vance was aboard her ship, the Horizon's Edge. When the announcement came through, she stood on the bridge, watching the faces of her crew as they listened to the broadcast. This is Secretary Ryan Park speaking to all citizens of Earth and our colonies. The Galactic Concord has voted to expel humanity from their alliance. We have 90 days to leave their space. Laura saw fear in some eyes, anger in others. A young officer named Tyler slammed his fist against a console. They can't do this, he said. We built half their trade routes. We helped them fight the Void Wars. They can do whatever they want, Laura replied quietly. They have the numbers. They have the ships. And they have decided that they don't want us anymore. So, what do we do? Another officer asked. Laura looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the borders of conquered space, lay the unknown. Regions of the galaxy that no one had explored. Places that even the oldest species feared to go. We survive, she said. And then, we find a new way forward. On Earth, the reaction was chaos. Cities erupted in protests. Some people demanded that the government fight back. Others said they should beg the Concord for mercy. Families packed their belongings, not knowing where they would go. Children asked their parents why the aliens didn't want them anymore. In a quiet office in Geneva, Daniel Reyes sat with Dr. Nathan Cole, one of Earth's most brilliant scientists. Nathan was a thin man with tired eyes, but his mind was always working. There's something the Concord doesn't know, Nathan said, spreading holographic charts across the table. Something they've been afraid of for thousands of years. Daniel leaned forward. Tell me. The outer reach, Nathan said. A region of space beyond all known hyperlanes. The Concord avoids it. They say it's dangerous. That ancient warnings tell them to stay away. But I've studied the old records. I think something else is out there. Something valuable. Can we get there? Nathan smiled for the first time in days. I have an idea. It's risky. It breaks every rule the Concord ever taught us. But if it works, we won't need their hyperlanes. We won't need their permission. We can find our own path. Daniel thought about the vote. He thought about the hundreds of red lights spreading across that chamber. He thought about the fear in people's eyes and the uncertainty in their hearts. Do it, he said. Whatever you need, you'll have it. Humanity isn't going to wait for the galaxy to accept us. We're going to make our own future. Outside the window, the sun was setting over the mountains. But for humanity, a new dawn was about to begin. 3 months had passed since the expulsion, and Earth was struggling to breathe. The great cities that once sparkled with alien technology now ran on backup power. Ships that used to carry goods from 1,000 worlds sat empty in orbital stations. The stores ran low on medicines that humans had forgotten how to make. Children went hungry while their parents searched for work that no longer existed. Daniel Reyes walked through the streets of what was once a thriving spaceport. Now it looked like a ghost town. Shops were closed. Windows were dark. The only sound was the wind blowing through empty corridors. He met Admiral Kevin Ortega at a small cafe that still managed to stay open. Kevin was a large man, with gray hair and hands that looked like they had built ships with their bare fingers. He had served Earth's fleet for 40 years, and he had never seen anything like this. The blockade is getting worse, Kevin said, pushing a cup of cold coffee across the table. The Concord says they're just enforcing the expulsion terms, but they're stopping ships that are still inside the deadline. 3 of our transport vessels were turned back yesterday. They had medical supplies, vaccines for the colonies. Daniel closed his eyes. How many people? 200,000 waiting for those vaccines. Another million who need the food we can't deliver. And if we try to force our way through? Kevin shook his head. They have 500 warships along the border. We have maybe 30 that can still fly. It would be a massacre. Daniel thought about the outer reach, about Nathan's plan to find a new path through dark space. It was their only hope now. But the project needed time, and time was running out. Far away on Mars, a young engineer named Megan Torres was working through her 3rd sleepless night. The shipyard around her was loud, with the sound of welding and cutting, and the shouts of workers who refused to give up. They were building something new here. Something that had never been built before. Megan stood before the skeleton of a ship that would change everything. It was smaller than the great cruisers of the Concord, but inside its hull was a drive system that broke every rule of physics that the aliens had taught humanity. Dr. Nathan Cole appeared beside her, carrying a tablet full of calculations. The math works, he said. At least, I think it works. We won't know for sure until we try. Megan wiped grease from her forehead. If it doesn't work, what happens? Nathan was quiet for a moment. Best case, the ship just sits there and nothing happens. Worst case, we tear a hole in space that swallows half the solar system. Great, Megan muttered. No pressure, but she kept working. They all did. Because the alternative was to give up. And no one on that shipyard was ready to do that. Back on Earth, Secretary Ryan Park stood before the United Council. The leaders of every nation sat before him, their faces tired and angry and afraid. They had argued for weeks about what to do. Some wanted to surrender. Some wanted to fight. None of them could agree. We have a choice, Ryan said, his voice steady despite the weight on his shoulders. We can beg the Concord to take us back. We can promise to be quiet, to stop exploring, to stay in our corner of the galaxy and never ask questions again. Maybe they will show us mercy. Maybe they will let us survive as a shadow of what we once were. He paused, looking at each face in turn. Or we can remember who we are. We are the species that looked at the stars and refused to believe they were out of reach. We are the people who crossed oceans, climbed mountains, and walked on the moon before we knew it was possible. We did not come this far by accepting limits. We came this far by breaking them. A murmur ran through the council. Some nodded. Others looked uncertain. There is a project, Ryan continued. A secret initiative that may give us a path forward. It is dangerous. It is uncertain. But it is hope. And right now, hope is the only thing we have left. In the weeks that followed, the Phoenix Initiative grew from a secret project to a movement. Scientists from every nation joined the effort. Engineers worked around the clock. Pilots volunteered for missions that might kill them. Ordinary people donated whatever they could spare. Commander Laura Vance received new orders. She was to take her ship, the Horizon's Edge, and lead a small fleet to protect the evacuation of human colonists from Concord space. It was a dangerous mission. The Concord blockade was tightening every day, and there were rumors that some alien commanders were looking for an excuse to start shooting. Laura gathered her crew on the bridge. They were young, most of them. Young and scared, and trying not to show it. I'm not going to lie to you, she said. This mission might be our last. The Concord wants us gone, and they're not interested in making it easy. But out there are families who need our help, children who need to come home, and I will not leave them behind. She looked at each of them in turn. If any of you want to stay behind, I understand. No one will think less of you. No one moved. Laura smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. Then, let's go get our people. The Horizon's Edge launched that night, along with 12 other ships. They flew toward the blockade, not knowing if they would ever return. On Mars, Megan Torres watched the fleet depart from a window in the shipyard. She thought about the people on those ships. She thought about the families waiting to be rescued. She thought about the drive system she was building, the one that might save them all. It has to work, she whispered to herself. Behind her, the prototype ship hummed with power. The dark space drive was almost complete. In a few more weeks, it would be ready for its first test. And if it worked, humanity would have a chance. Nathan Cole joined Megan at the window. Together, they watched the stars. We're going to make it, Nathan said. I don't know how, but I know we will. Megan nodded. She wanted to believe him. She had to believe him. Because the alternative was too terrible to imagine. The storm was gathering. But humanity was gathering too. And soon, the galaxy would learn what humans were truly capable of. The ship was called the New Dawn, and it carried the hopes of an entire species. Captain Derek Santos stood at the center of the bridge, watching his crew prepare for the moment that would change everything. They were about to do something that no one in the known galaxy had ever done before. Dark space drive is fully charged, reported Megan Torres from her station. She had insisted on being part of the mission. After building the drive with her own hands, she refused to let anyone else fly it. Navigation systems locked, added Lieutenant Tyler Grant, his fingers moving across the controls. Target coordinates set for the outer reach. Derek took a deep breath. The outer reach was a region of space that appeared on no Concord maps. Ancient warnings told all species to stay away. Some said it was filled with dangers beyond imagination. Others said it was simply empty. A vast nothing that would swallow anyone foolish enough to enter. But Nathan Cole believed there was something else out there. Something that the Concorde had been hiding for thousands of years. All hands, prepare for dark space jump, Derek announced over the ship's speakers. We're about to find out what's on the other side of forever. Dr. Samantha Lee, the ship's xenobiologist, gripped the arms of her chair. She had spent her whole life studying alien life forms. Now she might discover something that no human had ever seen. The ship began to shake. The lights flickered. Outside the windows, the stars seemed to stretch and twist into impossible shapes. And then, in a flash of blinding light, the new dawn disappeared from known space. For a moment, there was nothing. No light, no sound, no sensation of movement. Derek wondered if they had died. Maybe the drive had failed. Maybe they were floating in the void between dimensions, lost forever. Then the darkness cleared, and the crew gasped. Stars filled the view screen. Not the familiar stars of Concorde space, but new ones. Arranged in patterns that no human had ever recorded. Ahead of them stretched a spiral arm of the galaxy that the Concorde had never mapped. We made it, Megan whispered. We actually made it. Derek allowed himself a small smile. Begin scanning. I want to know everything about where we are. The scans came back quickly, and each report was more exciting than the last. The outer reach was not empty at all. It was filled with planets. Thousands of them. Many showed signs of being able to support life. Resources floated in asteroid fields larger than anything in conquered territory. This was not a wasteland. It was a paradise. Captain, Samantha called out, her voice tight with excitement. I'm detecting something else. Artificial structures, on the fourth planet. In this system, Derek turned. Artificial? As in buildings? As in an entire city. But the energy readings are strange. Old. Very old. They changed course and flew toward the planet. As they entered orbit, the city came into view. It covered an entire continent. A sprawling network of towers and domes and connecting bridges that seemed to glow with faint blue light. But there was no movement. No ships in the sky. No signals on any frequency. It's abandoned, Tyler said softly. How long has it been empty? Samantha checked her readings 3 times before answering. Based on the decay patterns, I estimate this city has been abandoned for at least 50,000 years. Derek felt a chill run down his spine. 50,000 years ago, humanity had been living in caves, painting pictures on stone walls. And here, someone had built a civilization that stretched across a continent. They sent a team to the surface. Derek led the expedition himself, walking through streets that had not felt footsteps in millennia. The architecture was beautiful and strange, with curves and angles that seemed to defy physics. Symbols covered the walls, a language that none of them could read. Samantha worked through the night, comparing the symbols to every known writing system in the Concorde database. Just before dawn, on the second day, she made a breakthrough. I can read some of it now, she announced to the team. This civilization called themselves the Architects. And according to these records, they built the hyperlane network that the entire Concorde uses to travel between stars. Derek stared at her. The Concorde's hyperlanes? They didn't create them? No. The Architects did, tens of thousands of years ago. The Concorde species found the network and learned to use it, but they never understood how it worked. They just took credit for it. The implications were enormous. The conquered had built their entire civilization on technology they didn't create and couldn't explain. They had claimed to be the masters of the galaxy, but they were just visitors in someone else's house. What happened to the architects? Megan asked. Where did they go? Samantha scrolled through more records. I'm not sure yet, but there are references to other installations throughout the Outer Reach. Libraries, factories, research stations. If we can find them, we might learn everything they knew. Back on Earth, the news of the successful jump spread quickly through the Phoenix Initiative. Secretary Ryan Park addressed the council, with hope in his voice, for the first time in months. The new dawn has reached the Outer Reach. They have found habitable worlds and evidence of an ancient civilization. Humanity has a future beyond conquered space. But not everyone was celebrating. Some factions still wanted to surrender, to beg the Concord for forgiveness and return to the way things were. Arguments erupted in council chambers. Protests filled the streets. Unity was cracking under the pressure. Admiral Kevin Ortega watched the unrest from his command center. He had been quietly converting civilian ships into warships, preparing for the day when the Concord might decide that expulsion was not enough. They'll come for us eventually, he said to his aide. The Concord doesn't like loose ends. And now that we've found something in the Outer Reach, they'll want to know what it is. Should we tell them? Kevin shook his head. Not yet. Let humanity get established first. Let us build something worth defending. Then, if they come, we'll be ready. In the Outer Reach, the crew of the New Dawn continued their exploration. Every day brought new discoveries, new worlds to map, new secrets to uncover. The ghost of the architects watched over them, their ancient technology waiting to be understood. Samantha found more records about the hyperlane network. She learned that the architects had designed it to connect the entire galaxy. But something had stopped them before they finished. Something had made them leave. What were they running from? She wondered, staring at the alien symbols on her screen. The answer was still hidden somewhere in the Outer Reach. And humanity was determined to find it. Derek Santos stood on a cliff overlooking the ancient city. The blue glow of the towers reflected in his eyes. Behind him, his crew worked on establishing a base camp. This is just the beginning, he said quietly. We're not refugees anymore. We're pioneers. The wind carried his words across the empty streets, through the abandoned towers, and out into the stars. Somewhere out there, the Concord was watching. But for now, humanity had found something they could call their own. A new dawn was rising. 2 years had passed since the expulsion, and the galaxy had changed in ways that no one expected. The Outer Reach was no longer empty. 12 human colonies now dotted the unexplored region, each one growing stronger every day. Ships flew between new worlds, carrying settlers, scientists, and dreamers who refused to accept that humanity's story was over. Daniel Reyes stood in the command center of Haven, the largest of the new colonies. Through the window, he could see construction crews building homes, schools, and hospitals. Children played in parks that had been forests just months before. Life was beginning again. But Daniel knew that peace would not last. The Concord had noticed. Ambassador Dawson is on the line, his aide announced. She says it's urgent. Daniel activated the communication screen. Claire Dawson appeared, her face tight with worry. She had become Earth's voice to the galaxy, sending messages of peace while preparing for the worst. The Concord is moving, Claire said without greeting. They've assembled a peacekeeping armada. 300 warships. Maybe more. They claim we violated the terms of expulsion by colonizing new territory. The Outer Reach wasn't part of their space. Daniel replied. They had no claim to it. I would know Morling. They say the expulsion terms covered all colonization, everywhere. They're calling it illegal expansion. Claire paused. Daniel, they're coming. The armada will reach our border in 6 days. Daniel closed his eyes. He had hoped they would have more time to build, more time to prepare, more time to become strong enough that the Concord would think twice before attacking. "Call a meeting of the Phoenix Council," he said. "We need to decide how to respond." The council gathered within hours. Admiral Kevin Ortega reported on their military strength. It was better than it had been 2 years ago, but still not enough to fight a full Concord armada. "We have 47 combat-ready ships," Kevin said. "Good crews, good training. But against 300 Concord vessels, we'd last maybe an hour. Then we don't fight," Daniel said. "Not with weapons, anyway." Commander Eric Vega, the tactical genius in charge of defending the colonies, leaned forward. "What do you have in mind?" Daniel looked around the table. 2 years ago, Dr. Cole and Megan Torres discovered something in the architect ruins. They've been working on it in secret ever since. "Nathan, tell them." Nathan Cole stood, his tired eyes bright with excitement. "The architects left behind more than cities and records. They left technology. Specifically, they left the designs for an energy shield that operates on principles the Concord doesn't understand." He activated a holographic display showing a ship surrounded by a shimmering field of light. "We've built it," Nathan continued. "We've tested it. Concord weapons cannot penetrate this shield. Their plasma cannons, their missiles, their particle beams, all of them just bounce off." Silence filled the room. Then Commander Vega spoke. "You're telling me we can make our ships invincible?" "Not invincible," Megan Torres corrected. She had joined the council as lead engineer of the project. "The shield uses enormous amounts of power. A single ship can only maintain it for about 20 minutes before the generators burn out. But for 20 minutes, nothing can touch us." Admiral Ortega rubbed his chin. 20 minutes might be enough, if we use it right." The plan came together over the next 3 days. Commander Laura Vance would lead a small defensive fleet to meet the Concord Armada. She would not attack. She would not run. She would simply stand her ground and show the galaxy what humanity had become. Laura chose 12 ships for the mission. Her own vessel, the Horizon's Edge, would carry the shield technology. The others would serve as escorts and witnesses. "If this works," she told her crew, "every species in the galaxy will see it. They'll see that the Concord's weapons mean nothing to us. They'll see that we won't be bullied. We know. And if it doesn't work?" Tyler Grant asked quietly. Laura smiled. "Then, we'll have given humanity a few more hours to prepare. Either way, we don't surrender." The Concord Armada arrived on schedule. 312 warships arranged in perfect formation, their weapons powered and ready. Admiral Veth, a reptilian commander from one of the Concord's oldest species, led the fleet. He had been chosen because he had no sympathy for humans. He would follow orders without hesitation. "Human vessels," Veth announced over all channels. "You are in violation of Galactic Concord Directive 7. Stand down and prepare to be escorted back to your assigned space. Resistance will be met with force." Laura's face appeared on screens across the Armada. She looked calm, almost peaceful. "Admiral Veth," she replied. "Humanity does not recognize your authority over the outer reach. This region was never part of your space. You have no claim to it. We will not stand down." "Art," Veth's eyes narrowed. "You have 12 ships. I have 300. This is not a negotiation." "You're right," Laura said. "This is an education." She nodded to her crew, and the shield activated. A dome of golden light surrounded the Horizon's Edge, pulsing with energy that made instruments across the Concord fleet go haywire. "What is that?" Veth demanded. Laura ignored him. Instead, she began broadcasting on every frequency, reaching not just the Armada but every ship and station in Concord space. "People of the galaxy," she said. "For 112 years, the Concord told you that they were the masters of the stars. They claim to have built the hyperlane network that connects your worlds. They said they were the oldest, the wisest, the most powerful. She paused, letting her words sink in. They lied. The hyperlanes were built by a civilization called the Architects, tens of thousands of years before the Concord existed. The Concord found this technology and took credit for it. They didn't create anything. They just claimed what others had built. Across the galaxy, billions of beings listened. On the Concord Armada, captains from different species exchanged uncertain glances. Humanity has found the Architect homeworld, Laura continued. We have learned their secrets, and now we offer this knowledge to anyone who wants it. Not as a weapon, but as a gift. The truth belongs to everyone. Admiral Veth had heard enough. Fire! He commanded. Destroy that ship. Fire! Plasma cannons roared. Missiles streaked through space. A wall of destruction flew toward the horizon's edge, enough firepower to vaporize a small moon. The golden shield held. The weapon struck and simply disappeared, absorbed into the shimmering light like raindrops falling into an ocean. The horizon's edge didn't move. It didn't shake. It just sat there, untouched. On the Armada, chaos erupted. Captains shouted questions. Crews stared at their instruments in disbelief. Nothing like this had ever happened before. Veth's face turned pale. Fire again. All ships. Concentrate. Fire! Every ship in the Armada opened fire at once. The sky filled with light and fury. For 30 seconds, enough energy to crack a planet poured toward Laura's tiny fleet. When the barrage ended, the horizon's edge was still there. The shield flickered, then stabilized. Laura looked directly into the camera. We could have built weapons, she said quietly. We could have come here with revenge in our hearts. But we didn't. We chose to defend, not attack. We chose to share truth, not spread lies. This is who humanity is. She took a breath. We're not going anywhere. The outer reach is our home now. You can accept that, or you can keep trying to destroy us. But you should know that we will never give up. We will never surrender, and we will never stop hoping for something better. The broadcast ended. Across the Armada, no one moved. No one spoke. The moment stretched into minutes. Then, one by one, conquered ships began to power down their weapons. Captains who had questioned the vote 2 years ago finally saw a chance to make their voices heard. The Armada didn't retreat, but it didn't advance either. Admiral Veth screamed orders that no one followed. The cracks in the Concord were showing at last. And on the horizon's edge, Laura Vance allowed herself to breathe. They had done it. They had shown the galaxy that humanity would not be broken. The tide was rising, and nothing would stop it now. 5 years had passed since the day the galaxy voted to throw humanity away. 5 years since Daniel Reyes stood before the Concord Assembly and promised that his people would not be broken. Now he stood in a very different place, surrounded by very different faces. The summit hall on Haven was filled with representatives from 43 species. Some had been members of the Concord for thousands of years. Others were younger races who had watched humanity's stand against the Armada and felt something stir in their hearts. They had traveled to the outer reach, not as enemies, but as friends seeking a new way forward. They called themselves the Open Hand. Daniel walked among them, greeting each delegation with respect and warmth. A tall, blue-skinned being named Korath clasped his hand in the traditional greeting of his people. 5 years ago, my government voted to expel you, Korath said. I was ashamed then. I am here now to make things right. The past is the past, Daniel replied. What matters is what we build together. Commander Laura Vance watched from the edge of the hall. She was older now, her hair touched with gray, but her eyes were still sharp. She had led dozens of missions since that day she faced down the Concord Armada. Each one had brought more species to their cause. Beside her stood Megan Torres, No longer a young engineer, but the chief architect of humanity's new fleet. The ships she had designed now carried people of many species, working together in ways the Concorde had never allowed. Strange, isn't it? Megan said. 5 years ago, we were outcasts. Now look at this room. Laura nodded. The universe has a sense of humor. The summit lasted 3 days. Agreements were made. Trade routes were planned. Scientific knowledge was shared openly, without the restrictions the Concorde had always imposed. By the end, the open hand had become something real, a new alliance built on principles of equality and mutual respect. On the final day, a message arrived from the Concorde Assembly. The speaker himself appeared on the screen, his silver skin gleaming under artificial lights. The Galactic Concorde has reviewed the current situation, the speaker announced. We acknowledge that humanity has established a stable presence in the outer reach. We acknowledge that several member species have chosen to join the so-called Open Hand Alliance. The speaker paused, as if the next words were difficult to say. In light of these developments, the Concorde offers to restore Earth's membership. All previous charges will be dismissed. All restrictions will be lifted. Humanity will be welcomed back as a full member with all rights and privileges. Murmurs filled the summit hall. Some of the alien delegates looked surprised. Others looked worried. They had come to the outer reach, seeking freedom from the Concorde's control. Would humanity abandon them, now that a better offer had arrived? Daniel stepped forward. He had known this moment would come eventually. He had prepared for it. "Speaker," he said, his voice carrying across the hall and across the galaxy through the broadcast. "Humanity is honored by the Concorde's offer. 5 years ago, we would have accepted it without question. We would have been grateful for any chance to return to your alliance." He looked around at the gathered delegates, at the species who had risked everything to join the Open Hand, at his own people, who had worked so hard to build something new. But we are not the same people we were 5 years ago. We have learned things. We have grown. And we have made promises to our new friends that we intend to keep. The speaker's expression didn't change, but his voice grew cold. "I am proposing something different," Daniel replied. The Concorde was built on secrecy and control. Species were ranked by age and power. Knowledge was hoarded by those at the top. Younger races were told to know their place and never ask questions. He spread his hands. The Open Hand offers another way. An alliance where every species has an equal voice. Where knowledge is shared freely. Where curiosity is celebrated instead of punished. We don't want to replace the Concorde. We want to show that there's a better path. The speaker was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. "You are making a mistake, human. The Concorde has stood for 10,000 years. Your alliance will collapse within a generation." "Maybe," Daniel said. "Or maybe we'll build something that lasts even longer. Either way, it will be our choice. And that's something the Concorde never offered us." The broadcast ended. The summit hall erupted in applause. Delegates from a dozen worlds surrounded Daniel, offering their support and their thanks. The Open Hand had survived its first test. Months later, a new flagship was completed. They called it the Horizon Unbound, the largest and most advanced vessel humanity had ever built. Its crew was drawn from every species in the Open Hand, working together as equals. Commander Laura Vance was given command. She stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars she had spent her life exploring. "All stations report ready," Tyler Grant announced from the helm. He was a captain now, commanding his own ship in the fleet. But he had asked to serve on the flagship for its maiden voyage. "Navigation course set for the deep outer reach," Samantha Lee added. She had continued her study of the architects and believed there were more secrets waiting to be found beyond the mapped regions. Laura nodded. "Open a channel to the fleet." Her face appeared on screens across 100 ships. Humans, blue-skinned Korath, insectoid Vel, crystalline Shen, and dozens of other species watched and listened. 5 years ago, the galaxy told us we didn't belong, Laura said. They tried to push us into a corner and make us disappear. But here we are, not just surviving, but thriving. Not alone, but together with friends we never expected to find. She smiled, and it was a real smile. The smile of someone who had found exactly where she was meant to be. Today, we begin a new chapter. We go forward not as conquerors or refugees, but as explorers. The universe is vast and full of wonders. Let's go find them together. The fleet moved as one, 100 ships jumping into the unknown. Behind them, the colonies of the outer reach continued to grow. On Earth, people looked up at the stars with hope instead of fear, and across the galaxy, species who had lived under the Concorde's shadow for generations began to imagine a different future. On the observation deck of the Horizon Unbound, Megan Torres stood watching the stars streak past. Laura joined her, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Laura broke the silence. 5 years ago, I told my crew that we survive first, then find a way forward. I never imagined we'd come this far. Megan nodded. The Concorde thought they were burying us. And instead, Megan turned to face her commander, her friend, her companion through 5 years of struggle and triumph. They didn't know we were seeds. Laura laughed softly. It was a sound that carried all the pain and joy and hope of everything they had been through. The expulsion, the desperation, the discovery, the standoff. And now this, a fleet of many species heading into the stars together. Seeds, Laura repeated. Outside, the universe stretched before them, infinite and unexplored. Somewhere out there, the architects had left more secrets waiting to be found. Somewhere out there, new species were watching the stars and wondering if they were alone. Humanity had an answer for them now. No one was alone. No one had to face the darkness by themselves. That was what the open hand meant. That was what they had built. And this was only the beginning. The Horizon Unbound flew onward, carrying the hopes of 100 worlds into the depths of forever. Behind them, the past faded like distant starlight. Ahead of them, the future waited with open arms. Humanity had been thrown away by the galaxy. They had chosen to forge a new future instead. And in the end, that made all the difference.